All right. I love that we have so many listeners here. I'm getting more and more listeners. So I don't necessarily understand why, but I'm happy that you like this book. I wish you would tell me why you like this book. Um, yeah, is it a great book? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weird because, people have got so many attitudes about, like, even Dr. Seuss, right? Even Dr. Seuss has got, people have political attitudes about Dr. Seuss. And I read that in our early bird classroom, The Sneetches, and it was such a good book. Oh, it was a story, whatever. So tell me why you like this book, but I'm so happy that people are listening to it. I just am. I just think it's great. If, who wants to sit over there and watch people eat? Honest to God, there's something demented about that. But to listen to somebody read you a story, I don't know who wouldn't want that. We are on chapter 16 of Be Careful What You Wish For in the Goosebumps series. This, I think, is what? Number 12 is what this is. So R.L. Stine, Goosebumps number 12. Be careful what you wish for. As I pedaled closer, my heart pounding happily, I saw that she had her back turned to me. All right, so the old weird lady. She had changed her outfit. She was wearing a purple wool beret and a long black coat down nearly to her ankles. I screeched my bike to a halt a few feet behind her, my tires skidding over the pebbly road. I need to make another wish, I called breathlessly. She turned and I gasped. I stared into a face full of freckles, a young-looking face framed by short, curly blonde hair. I'm sorry, what did you say? She asked, narrowing her eyes at me, her expression bewildered. I'm sorry, I stammered, feeling my face turn hot. I thought you were someone else. It was a different woman. I felt so embarrassed. I just wanted to die. Behind her, I saw two blonde-haired kids tossing a frisbee back and forth at the edge of the woods. Tommy, don't throw it so hard. Your sister can't catch it, the woman instructed. Then she turned back to me. What did you say about your wishes? Are you lost? She asked, studying my face with concern. I knew I was still blushing, but I couldn't help it. No, I thought you were, I started. Tommy, go chase it yourself, she shouted to her little boy. The two kids started squabbling. She hurried over to settle it. Sorry I bothered you, I called. Bye. I turned my bike around and started pedaling rapidly towards home. I was embarrassed that I'd said such a stupid thing to a total stranger, but mainly I was disappointed. I really expected the strange woman to be there. Where else could she be? I asked myself. I remembered that I had shown her the way to Madison Road. Maybe I decided I will get lucky and run into her there. It was a real long shot, but I was desperate. I turned my bike around and made my way to Madison. The wind had picked up and my face began to feel cold and raw. I was riding against the wind and the sharp cold was making my eyes water. Even through the blur, I could see that the woman was not hanging around on Madison waiting for me to show up. Two mangy brown mutts trotted side by side across the street, their heads bowed against the wind. They were the only living creatures I saw. I rode slowly back and forth a few times, my eyes searching the rambling old houses of the neighborhood. A total waste of time. I was completely frozen, my ears and nose tingling with numbness. My watering eyes sent cold tears rolling down my cheeks. Give up, Sam, I instructed myself aloud. The sky darkened. The storm clouds hovered low above the shivering trees. Feeling miserable and defeated, I turned and headed for home. I was pedaling furiously down the center of the street, trying to keep my bike upright in the gusting wind. I stopped when Judith's house came into view. It was a long, low, redwood ranch-style house set back from the street on a wide, sloping front lawn. Maybe I'll stop for a minute and see how Judith is doing, I decided. It'll give me a chance to get warm, too, I thought. I reached up a hand and felt my nose, totally numb. Shivering, I rode up the driveway and lowered my bike to the ground. Then, trying to rub some feeling into my poor nose, I jogged up the walk and rang the bell. Mrs. Bellwood seemed very surprised to see a visitor. I told her who I was and that I just happened to be riding by. How is Judith feeling? I asked, shivering. About the same, she replied with a worried sigh. She had Judith's green eyes, but her hair was nearly entirely gray. She led me into the hallway, which felt toasty and warm. The house smelled of roasting chicken. I suddenly realized I was hungry. Judith, you have a visitor, Mrs. Bellwood shouted up the stairs. I heard a weak reply, but couldn't make out the words. Go on up, Judith's mother said, putting a hand on the cold shoulder of my coat. You look so cold, she added, shaking her head. Be careful, dear. You don't want to get sick, too. I climbed the stairs and found Judith's room at the end of the hall. I hesitated in the doorway and peered in. The room was dimly lit. I could see Judith lying in bed on top of the quilt, her head propped up on several pillows. Books and magazines and a couple of school notes were scattered over the bed. But Judith wasn't reading. She was just staring straight ahead. Stork, she cried. Stork, she cried, seeing me in the doorway. I entered the room, forcing a smile on my face. How are you feeling? I asked softly. Her voice was hoarse. I was riding my bike and I stammered, staying by the door. I was startled by her anger. Riding your bike in this cold? With great effort, she pulled herself up to a sitting position. Leaning against the headboard, she glared at me suspiciously. I just wondered how you were, I muttered. Why don't you just fly away, bird? She growled nastily. Huh? You are a witch, aren't you? She accused. I couldn't believe she was saying these things. I was stunned, shocked. It was no joke. I could see clearly that she was serious. You did cast a spell on us. I know it. Judith, please, I cried. What are you saying? We did a unit on witches in social studies last year, she said in her hoarse voice. We studied spells and things. That's crazy, I insisted. You were jealous of me, Sam, of me and Anna and everyone else, Judith accused. So, I cried angrily. So all of a sudden, all the girls on the team feel weak and sick, except for you, Sam. You feel fine, right? Judith, listen to me, I pleaded. You're a witch, Sam, she screamed, her weak voice breaking. She started to cough. Judith, you're talking like a crazy person, I insisted. I'm not a witch. How could I be a witch? I'm sorry you're sick. Really, I am, but... You're a witch. You're a witch, Judith chanted, her voice a shrill whisper. I've talked to all the girls. They agree. You're a witch. A witch. I was furious. I thought I'd explode. I had my hands balled into tight fists. My head was throbbing. Judith had been talking to all the other girls, spreading the story that I was a witch. How could she do such a crazy thing? A witch! You're a witch! She continued to chant. I was so upset I totally lost it. Judith, I shrieked. I never would have done it to you if you hadn't been so horrible to me. I realized immediately that I'd made a terrible mistake. I had just admitted to her that I was responsible for her being sick. I had just blurted out that I was a witch. But I was so furious, I didn't care. I knew it, Judith croaked in her hoarse voice, her green eyes glowing excitedly, pointing an accusing finger at me. What's going on here? What's all this shouting? Judith's mother appeared in the room, her eyes flashing back and forth between Judith and me. She's a witch! A witch! Judith screamed. Judith, your voice. Stop, Mrs. Bellwood cried, running to the bed. She turned back at me. I think Judith is delirious. She's saying such crazy things. Please don't pay attention. She's a witch. She admitted it. She's a witch, Judith screeched. Judith, please, you have to calm down. You have to save your strength, said Mrs. Bellwood pleaded. I'm sorry. I'll go now, I said sharply. I darted out of the room, ran down the stairs, and ran out of the house as fast as I could. A witch! A witch! Judith's hoarse chant followed me out. I was so angry, so hurt, so humiliated. I felt about to explode. I wish Judith would disappear, I screamed. I really do. Very well, that shall be your second wish, said a voice behind me. I spun around to see the strange woman standing at the side of the house, her long black hair fluttering behind her in the gusting wind. She held the glowing red ball high. Her eyes glowed as red as the ball. I shall cancel your first wish, she said in her shaky old lady's voice, and I shall grant your second. No, wait, I cried. The woman smiled and pulled her shawl over her head. Wait, I didn't mean it, I cried, running toward her. Oh, I didn't know you were there. Wait, ow. My foot caught on a loose stone in the walk, and I stumbled. I hit my knees hard. The pain shot up my entire body. When I looked up, she was gone. After dinner, Ron agreed to play basketball out back, but it was too cold and windy. A light snow had started to fall. We settled for ping pong in the basement. We're on chapter 17. Ping pong games in our basement are always difficult. For one thing, the ceiling is so low, the ball is always hitting it and bouncing crazily away. Also, Pumpkin had a bad habit of chasing after the ball and biting holes in it. Ping pong is the only sport I'm good at. I have a really tricky serve, and I'm good at slamming the ball down my opponent's throat. I can usually beat Ron 2 games out of 3. But tonight he could see my heart wasn't in it. "What's up?" he asked as we batted the ball softly back and forth. His dark eyes peered into mine and behind his black framed glasses. I decided I had to tell him about Clarissa and her red crystal ball and the 3 wishes. I was so desperate to tell someone. "I helped this strange woman a few days ago," I blurted out, "and she granted me 3 wishes. I made a wish, and now all the girls on my basketball team are going to die." Ron dropped the paddle onto the table. His mouth dropped open. "What an amazing coincidence," he cried. "Huh?" I gaped at him. "I met my fairy godmother yesterday," Ron exclaimed. "She promised to make me the richest person in the world, and she's going to give me a solid gold Mercedes with a swimming pool in the back." He burst out laughing. He just thinks he's such a riot. "Ugh!" I let out an angry, frustrated groan. Then I tossed my paddle at him and ran upstairs to my room. I slammed the bedroom door behind me and began to pace back and forth, my arms crossed tightly in front of me. I kept telling myself that I had to calm down, that it wasn't good to be this stressed out. But of course, telling yourself to calm down doesn't do any good. It only makes you more tense. I decided I had to do something to occupy my mind, to keep myself from thinking about Judith and Clarissa and the new wish I had accidentally made. My second wish. "It's not fair," I cried aloud, still pacing. "After all, I didn't know I was making a second wish. That woman tricked me. She appeared out of nowhere and tricked me." I stopped in front of my mirror and fiddled with my hair. I have very fine, light blonde hair. It's so fine that there isn't much I can do with it. I usually tie it in a ponytail on the right side of my head. It's a style I saw on a model that looked a little like me in 17. 17 is a magazine. Just to keep my hands busy, I tried doing something else with my hair. Studying myself in the mirror, I tried sweeping it straight back. Then I tried parting it in the middle and letting it fall over my ears. It looked really lame. The activity wasn't helping. It wasn't taking my mind off Judith at all. I pulled it back into the same old ponytail. Then I brushed it for a while. I tossed down the brush with a sigh and returned to pacing. My big question, of course, was, had my wish come true? Had I caused Judith to disappear? As much as I hated Judith, I certainly didn't want to be responsible for making her disappear forever. With a loud moan, I tossed myself on my bed. What should I do? I asked myself. I had to know if the wish had come true. I decided to call her house. I wouldn't talk to her. I'd just call her house and see if she was still around. I wouldn't even tell them who was calling. I looked up Judith's number in the school directory. I didn't know it by heart. I had only called it once before. My hand was shaking as I reached for the phone on my desk. I punched in her phone number. It took me 3 tries. I kept making mistakes. I was really scared. I felt as if my stomach were tied in a knot and my heart had jumped up into my throat. The phone rang, 1 ring, 2 rings, 3 rings. Had she disappeared? All right, that was chapter 16 and 17. So we will continue tomorrow. We will see tomorrow for sure. I don't think I'm going to be here tomorrow because I've got at a certain time, 2:30, a phone appointment. It was the only time I can get this phone appointment, and I didn't realize it. So I don't know. I will let you guys know what our schedule is sometime tomorrow. Or tomorrow, I'll let you know. I'll be here for the early bird classroom, I'm pretty sure. Okay, this is Dr. Annette Feravich. Thank you for joining me in the reading room. I am the teacher. This is the classroom, and we are all set for today. Thanks again.